Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bots, the series where we take a deep dive into the wonderful world of FIRST, connecting with the FIRST competitive robotics community and exploring the possibilities within FIRST and beyond. I'm Blair from FIRST, and it is my pleasure to be with you for another exciting episode. And I have to tell you, this show is gonna rock. We are so excited about it. We are pumped, and you will be too, because we got some great guests coming up. Now, this is National Engineering Week. So to explore the intersection of STEM and sports, we've gathered a truly impressive and diverse group of professionals who are working in that space, but in a variety of capacities. All have followed their passions and used their STEM skills to carve out their rewarding careers. First up, to explore how math and science are used to predict outcomes, we have neuroscientist turned super cool NBA analytics analyst and a senior writer at ESPN, Andre Snellings. Then, we'll host a panel of women trailblazers who are advancing equity in the sports arena with game changers Jen Welter, the first female coach in the National Football League, Yareliz Ramirez, IT services manager for the Miami Heat, and Brittany Holterman, former D1 basketball player and two-time competitor on America Ninja Warrior. We'll be hearing firsthand their experiences and advice for succeeding in a male-dominated industry. And then we've got more. We'll check in with World Series winning two-time All-Star pitcher Sean Doolittle from the Cincinnati Reds about how he uses math every day in Major League Baseball. And joining me as a guest host is one of our favorite champions, the passionate and energetic global STEM advocate, Jay Flores. Now, Jay hosts the Changing the Game series for FIRST on Instagram. And he will not only lead the conversations and take your questions from the chat, he'll also be asking our guests their thoughts on innovations needed in their area of expertise, which may inspire your solutions for the FIRST Innovation Challenge presented by Qualcomm. Now, before I hand it over to Jay, we want to remind you that we'd love to have your voice in the conversation. So please use the chat to send in your questions for our guests. We are live. And continue to share your team's stories at the hashtag FirstGameChangers, which we monitor to look for more teams to highlight later in our Beyond the Bot series. Also check the wall to see what other teams around the world are up to this season. Now, for those of you new to FIRST, you're probably asking, what is FIRST? FIRST is a nonprofit creating a world where science and technology is celebrated and where young people dream of becoming science and technology leaders. Nearly 700,000 youth in more than 100 countries participate in our hands-on robotics-based programs, where they learn essential skills like teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, while becoming inspired by science and technology. Created by inventor Dean Kamen, FIRST has been leading the STEM movement and changing lives and culture for over 30 years. All right, it's time to get in the game. Here's Jay Flores to take us into the world of sports, STEM, and advancing equity. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Blair. I'm so excited to be here. We've had such great success with the Changing the Game series powered by Rock Automation on Instagram. We've had Olympians, we've had current and former NFL players, American Ninja Warriors, IndyCar race drivers, a wide variety of incredible superstars that are helping open up the world of sports and showing us the STEM behind what makes their sport possible, exciting, and more importantly, how our FIRST students can help change the game and innovate the sport in the years to come. So I'm so excited to be able to have multiple guests on one show today from a wide variety of experiences.
Yes, we are blowing it out of the water, having so many great guests on. So let's get going. Who do you have first?
I am super excited for our first guest. He is a neural engineer turned senior writer at ESPN, the perfect example of how you combine the STEM and sports passions together. And it's taken him all the way to ESPN, and I'm so excited that he'll be able to join us today. Andre Snellings. That was awesome. And thanks for joining us, Andre. I'm super excited to have you here with us today. I've been, looking up in your history and your bio, and we've had some conversations. I'm just so excited for you to be able to bring that energy, that passion that you have for both of these worlds together for our students today. So thanks for joining us.
No doubt. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you. And so let's start from the beginning. Let's understand a little bit of your journey to getting to this spot. What were you inspired by early on in the world of science and sports, and how did that start to come together? Did it start at an early age, or is that something that started happening later on in life?
Yeah, I mean, so the science and academic world and then the sports world were always right in the middle of who I was, who I was brought up to be. My mom was a math teacher. I've been a sports fanatic my whole life. My first sports memories, my dad was a big Dr. J fan, so I grew up watching the NBA. And when I got a little older, I was a decent athlete. I was a pretty good athlete, actually. I was just the smallest kid in my class, or one of them for most of my life. So I got into playing sports and, was still trying to excel in the classroom. And that parallel just went right on up through high school, through college, where I went to Georgia Tech and studied electrical engineering, and also ran on the track team and was a high hurdler for the Georgia Tech track team. So, the two were always intertwined with me.
That's great to hear. And I feel like there's often opportunities to engage the two, but they're often seen as two different worlds. And so is there any moment where you started to say, hey, this STEM stuff that I'm doing can actually make me a better athlete or allow me to go deeper into this sport?
It wasn't like there was one aha moment. It was just that they were two passions that I was always kind of heavily into. And the way that played out is that while I was doing, there was always room in my life for both, I guess I should say. Mm-hmm. And when I got to college, so one thing I never really agreed with as I was growing up, and I would like to try to, I guess, impart it to whoever might be watching, is you don't have to just do one thing. A lot of us, when we're at elementary school, junior high, high school, we might be good at sports. We might be on, the student council. We might be a good artist, might be good at reading and writing, different things. We might have different interests. But then a lot of times when you get to college, and especially when it comes time to have a career, they say, okay, now you pick this one thing and you do this for the rest of your life. And it's really, to me, there's room, especially in this world, especially with the internet, which became a bigger thing. I'm old enough that the internet became a big thing kind of after I got to college. But there's room for all types of interests and passions to be able to be part of your vocation. So you asked kind of where the two overlapped for me. It was probably in grad school. I had just finished. So when I went to grad school at the University of Michigan, and I had some eligibility left. I ran track there too. But once my eligibility was gone, there was kind of a sports hole in my life. And I started playing fantasy sports while I was at the library waiting for my engineering study partner to get done. And I really got into them. And I mean, I got into them so much that I started having my own leagues and kind of serendipitously ended up volunteering to do some fantasy sports analysis for a website called RotoWire. And so a lot of times I would be doing that while in the research lab. I would do my research, and then at the end, I would work on sports. And so when it came time to write, I said that I was, giving my thoughts from the lab, and I was my thoughts on hoops. So it became the Hoops Lab, and that became kind of a staple of my sports writing. So that's probably where the overlap actually occurred.
I love that. There's so many good parallels to first year. One, the students on the teams are using a wide variety of different skill sets. We've got teams that are working on electrical, mechanical, others that are doing some marketing, the business side, scouting even. And so you can all use those wide variety of skills and tie the math and science behind it to go deeper into the areas that you're passionate about. So I love that you've showcased that just because they may be on a different side of the team doesn't mean that they can't cross-pollinate some of those skill sets and eventually find the path to the area that they're most passionate about, even if it is a little bit of each. And so for students who, this is Black History Month, right? And for students who may not see people in that path that they want to go down, or that they're kind of thinking about, I'm kind of interested in this, but I don't know anyone that's in this field, or I don't know anyone that's done this before. I'm sure you ran into that a couple of times along your journey. What's your advice for them, and how can they go out and pursue those things that they're passionate about that they may not have seen a lot in their community?
Right. So I would tackle that from multiple angles, because yes, in both of my main career paths, I was often the only person that looked like me. When I was at grad school at the University of Michigan, and then when I did my postdoc at Duke University, I was a Black man doing biomedical engineering research, and there weren't many of us. And a lot of times, and this was something that in some ways would kind of hurt my heart, but in other ways was motivational, was the only Black faces that I would see in a given day when I was in the lab were often the custodial staff, and they were, it was kind of, like I said, two sides of a coin, because they could see me trying to represent and trying to do good work in this other area. And they were and a lot of times I would be doing research after hours. The custodial staff would be my friends. They would come in, we would talk, they would, talk to their coworkers and say, hey, there's a young Black guy here who's doing some research. And so it was kind of a yin and yang pushing each other. And my point with bringing that up now is that a lot of times, yes, I might be the first. There's a movie called Hidden Figures, where the first African-American woman to be a engineer at NASA gives a speech on that, where she says, I have no choice but to be the first, because I'm going to be an engineer and there's never been one before. So I have to be the first. And so the word first is coming up a lot, but the first part of my answer would be that, to whatever you have interest and passion in, go get it. Know that it's out there for you. And whether there are people that look like you there already or not, you may be the trailblazer. And if you are, there'll be people that are pulling for you, your family, your friends, people that you might not even notice, people that are around will be pulling for you. So I would definitely encourage people to go after whatever it is they want. I guess the second way I would answer that is that, being in some ways the first of my generation to do certain things, or among the first to do certain things, I was standing on the shoulders of people that came before me and were the first in other ways. I tell a story a lot about my grandfather, who is from LaGrange, Georgia, who wanted to be an engineer, but he was born in 1915, and the greatest engineering school in his area was Georgia Tech, but it was not an integrated school. So, not only could he not go, there was a fear in him when I grew up, his grandson, and decided that I wanted to go to Georgia Tech, because in his experience, Black men did not go to Georgia Tech. And so it was, him being like the role model whose shoulders I stood on so that I was able to go and excel at Georgia Tech, ended up being a big matter of pride for him and a matter of pride for me. But I would also say anyone now who's coming behind me, there are, we are here. There may not be a lot of us, but when you come, you'll be coming to join, to join us in trying to advance this, narrative and advance our people in places where maybe we haven't traditionally been.
Man, you gave me goosebumps with a lot of that. I can relate. And I think a lot of our students here, I'm the first engineer in my family. And that promise that I made was that I wouldn't be the first and only, that I'd be the first of many. And I know there's a lot of the students out there that may be the first engineer, they may be the first female engineer in the family. There's a wide variety of the kind of firsts for these communities. And I hope that you all will take some of these tips that Andre has shared and blaze those trails. And thank you, Andre, for blazing those trails and making it easier for someone else to come up and look and see that path. And so I hope that you all will take the skills and values from first and continue to make new paths for many of those, because that's going to be the most rewarding thing you do. When I graduated, that was a great feeling. But now that my youngest cousins are studying engineering, that graduation is going to be that much better and much more rewarding. So thank you for the goosebumps. And if you haven't seen Hidden Figures, you have to watch that movie. It was absolutely wonderful. And so that goes into one of the reasons why I'm so excited about having you on here. And I know that a lot of students that come from our communities see sports as a way out sometimes, as kind of that path to a new life. But that's usually one of the only kind of avenues that's shared and visible and kind of known to a lot of the students, when there's so many, and some of them that you've explored. So help me. Let's talk to the younger version of you, right? And let's talk to the students, the girls and boys in a situation similar to you when you were younger. What are some of the areas in sports that people wouldn't really think of STEM being in there, especially in the areas that you're working on? What are some of those areas where it may not be as obvious that there's a lot of engineering or math or science behind this, making this happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so first of all, you are correct. When I was 10 years old, you could not have told me I wasn't going to be in the NBA. Like it was my manifest destiny. My favorite players were 6'6". My dad was 6'3". I was sure that meant I was going to be taller than him. I was going to be 6'6", and you were going to be watching me dunk all over everybody. That was the plan.
Okay.
You know, it didn't work out that way. So there are, in the sports world, there are so many jobs that are tied to STEM or other academic pathways. You know, obviously my current position, I'm an analyst and a sports writer at ESPN. And so I use a lot of the same math and science and even some of the you know, programming languages and statistical analysis tools that I learned as a biomedical engineer. Now I apply it to, you know, analyzing what goes on the basketball court. But you know, that's not a unique position, right? I mean, every sports team now, especially in the NBA, has an analytics department, and they have, and even their coaches and players. You know, about 10, 15 years ago, there was a player named Shane Battier who came out of Duke, and he was always credited as being one of the first NBA players with a heavy analytics mindset, a heavy analytics approach.
Okay.
And he would talk about how he would utilize analytics to make him a better player. So he would scout, but he would scout in specific ways. So he would learn where his opponents like to shoot from. When they made the move, where did they like to shoot from? And what were their percentages from each of those spots? And then he would use that to develop his techniques for how he would defend, how he would either beat them to that spot, or when they got there, put his hand in a certain place to prevent what they wanted to do. And so he was, in a lot of ways, a trailblazer on that front. But now that's all through the NBA. You know, the players are often taught that way. The coaches have to be able to, you know, impart that to the players. You look at teams like the Warriors, when they had their dynasty, the Rockets never quite got over the hump in the Daryl Morey and James Harden era. But now Harden and his coach have joined the Nets, and a lot of people feel like maybe they'll get over the hump in Brooklyn. So, or, you know, and of course, you know, the GM went to Philadelphia, and they're 1-2 in the East right now. But the point is that at every level of sports, it's not just about the physical. You have to be able to, even if you're a player and you have the physical, you have to be able to utilize your mind. As you know, Sean, I guess, is going to tell you later in the story. He's going to be talking about how he uses math as a player, but the coaches, the front office, those that write about it, all of us are in some way using skills that we learned in the classroom.
That's another great tie to first. So all of the students out there listening in that are a part of the scouting team, there's a direct path to you, and what Andre just shared, all the information that you guys are gathering as a team and trying to perform and shape the correct alliances and have strategy for your events is very relatable to what Andre just shared with us. And so whether that's that specific example, and I'm sure there's many others, like I know for sure at some point we're going to see drones flying around the NBA stadium, getting some really cool shots that we've never been able to see before. There's so many great paths. So I hope that you all will dig deeper into that. And keep throwing your questions into the chat. We're going to go to a question from the audience right now. So Francis190 asks, how widespread are analytics in the NBA today? And is this a career you can aim towards as a young person?
I would say it's very widespread and getting more so. And yes, that it is a career path that you can aim towards. So again, say about a decade ago, right, when I would spend a lot of times on basketball message boards, and I would, ironically, I would be arguing about, analysis, and I would be using some of the, at the time, new analytics, publicly available analytics techniques to make my case. Well, at the time, so one stat that I really like is a regressed plus minus stat, and there's a whole family of them. But one thing that I noticed at the time was anytime there was a publicly available site that offered regularized adjusted plus minus, the site would only last for about a year, and then it would go defunct because the guy who was running the site got hired by an NBA team to be in their analytics department. I mean, it happened just repeatedly. They were going to the Suns, they were going to the Mavericks, they were just going to all these different teams. And so in today's NBA, like I said earlier, I don't think there's a team out there that doesn't have some level of an analytics department. Some are more at the cutting edge than others, and they might have bigger departments. But as more and more teams are learning the benefits of it and seeing it play out in the championships, and anytime one entity gets a leg up in such a competitive environment, then the rest are going to flock to try to catch up to it. So yes, right now, every team in the league has an analytics department. By the time the next generation comes along, I would not doubt if it's much more in depth than it is right now.
I love it. And so if your teams are struggling out there, start working on some analytics, start working on how you can apply the STEM you've learned in first to help your organization from your town succeed. And that's one other thing that I've kind of noticed is I think one of the coolest things for a lot of our students, let's say passionate about basketball or any sport, would be to play, right? I think an even cooler thing would be to own a team at some point in your lifetime, right? And how many players have actually gone on to own teams? Michael Jordan, right? Yeah. So you literally have to be the GOAT and have a really awesome shoe brand and all the other things he's accomplished to get to that point, right? Now, how many owners are from STEM backgrounds and business backgrounds? There's that's the majority of that league. And so I want to take that and hopefully open up some eyes to a lot of the students there and see that you can create, even if you do go on to play, a wide variety of opportunities for you beyond the sport. Even if you do want to continue playing, there's still so many things that you can do once you retire or in kind of together with your sport career. And so that goes to kind of ties into one of the questions, another question we have from the chat, and which is what advice do you have for students today who aren't exactly sure what path they want to take? And I know you took a couple paths kind of at the same time, which, one led to this and that. Tell me a little bit about advice on how that all comes together and any kind of key tips that you've gotten along the way there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my initial advice would be, as you travel along your pathway, keep an open mind and try to place yourself into areas where you can have a broad experience. Like, so for example, it's kind of not embarrassing, but, I didn't grow up at a school that was heavily academically oriented. It was a public school, and when I was getting ready for college, people would tell me, "Hey, Andre, you're really good at math and science. You should be an engineer." I've been hearing that my whole life. You're good at math and science. You should be an engineer. well, I didn't really understand what engineers did. I was aware that it was a thing. And, as I said earlier, I'm old enough that the internet wasn't popping like that when I was getting ready for college. So it wasn't like I could just Google it and pull up information like now. So my point is, when it came time to go to school and I said, okay, I'm going to be an engineer. And they said, okay, well, when you're choosing your major, what kind of engineer? I didn't know. So I said, what kind of engineer is the broadest? And they said essentially electrical and mechanical. So, my dad was really into sci-fi. So I chose electrical because I thought I could see where maybe I could, find the pathway to his stories. And so as I went through college, I started learning more about engineering and learning more about the things that interested me and the things that didn't. So from an electrical engineer, when I decided I wanted to do research and go to grad school, I became a biomedical engineer because I had more interest there. It was more passion there. I always used to say that I wanted to, whatever I did, I wanted to be able to explain it to my grandmother and have her be able to go to church and tell her friends about it. And so when I would go to electrical engineering, grad school talks, they were very, very, very specific. But in biomedical engineering, I can say, hey, grandma, Muhammad Ali, right? Well, he's got Parkinson's disease. Well, what I'm working on is a treatment for Parkinson's disease. And she could go tell all her friends at church and get the story wrong, but they would enjoy it and she could be proud of her grandson. And so, but my point was, again, I was picking up along the way that this is what I like in the realm of science and engineering. Well, at the same time, I was still, running track. I actually walked onto the track team at Georgia Tech. Athletics didn't have to be something for me that necessarily faded away when I finished high school the way it was I expected. But then at some point it did end. And as I mentioned earlier, I got to grad school and, but I found that I had a passion for fantasy sports that became a passion for arguing about basketball that became a passion for writing about basketball. So, my advice would be to keep your mind open, your eyes open. Don't take anything off the table. We've talked about two of my things. I also really love to read and write. So I've written a couple of books, a couple of sci-fi fantasy novels because, I haven't tried to sell them yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But, it's another area of interest to me. And so I would say that everyone watching this, as you're going along, if there's something that you really like to do, keep doing it. Even if you're doing something else, keep doing it. And you never really know where that might take you.
I love it. Keep following your passions and find the STEM, the math and science behind them. And, you'll eventually find the area that you love most. Tons of great questions in the chat. Make sure to use hashtag #FirstGameChangers on social if you want to continue to ask any of these questions. We got time for one more quick question with you, Andre. And I just want to know, if you had a magic wand and you could use the power of the students here on the call from First to innovate some area of the sports world, whatever area you like, sports, fitness, health. What's one thing you would love to see these students create?
Okay, so I can have fun with this question. Okay, I'll start off with what I want, and then I'll leave it up to your audience to decide how far they want to take it. I want to watch LeBron James play against prime Michael Jordan. I want to watch Bill Russell try to defend the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry. I want to watch Tim Duncan face Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I want to see Kevin Garnett play Akeem Olajuwon, both in their primes. So I can think of a few different pathways to get there, right? There's this heavy emphasis on analytics now. We have measurables for all of these players. We've got film. We can record what their tendencies are. Maybe we could develop simulations that would be realistic of these types of players. That's kind of a 2021 type approach. But maybe we take that to the next level and go into virtual reality and make it so that instead of just simulations, these great players, their bodies might get older, but their mind doesn't. If anybody that watched the Bulls Michael Jordan documentary last year, you could tell that man, if he could right now, would come out and take it to these youngsters. So maybe you develop something where the Michael Jordan as is can control the virtual Michael Jordan in a virtual reality world, and we could get it that way. Maybe you develop the Matrix, where Michael Jordan, his mind enters Neo's body, and he can, go ahead and face off against LeBron in their virtual form. Or maybe you develop Avatar, and you actually have Jordan and LeBron controlling clones of themselves. Maybe that's the sci-fi version. But however you want to do it, I've told you what I want to see. I want to see LeBron play Michael. Now I want you guys to make it happen.
I love this. We can end the GOAT conversations. We can see it happen, whether it's analytics, whether it's avatar style or VR. This is such a cool idea that I hope the students can take and think of something along those lines, any path along there, maybe something you didn't even mention that helps us have that information. I could even see that helpful in terms of how do you put the best teams together? How would this player work well with this player? Stuff like that. So take this idea, guys, go around, blow it up, put it together, take it apart. And if you come up with something pretty cool, I need you to tag Andre on it and showcase your video, your prototype, whatever it is, so that he can write about it and get excited about it and start leveraging that to put out some incredible content out there. So thank you for that idea. Thank you so much for your time, for being a trailblazer, and for taking the time to inspire that next group of students that are going to change the game. So I'm just so lucky to have you with us today. And I know this is just the beginning. So we'll see you at regionals, at championships, events later on in the future. Thanks, brother.
No doubt. Thanks for having me.
Have a good night. All right, Blair, let's bring it back.
Wow.
Was that not amazing?
I love the way his brain works.
Yes.
He's a neuroscientist with this crazy brain. I would love that concept, man. If a team does do that for the the Innovation Award this year, they got a pretty good shot at winning it. But
I agree. I'm trying to see Andre versus Jordan, though. I want to see how Andre's mind, let's say, put in someone else's body, will stack up against Jordan. That was just really cool, and again, also great advice and representation, and how he made his path down an area where he didn't see anyone else that looked like him, but followed his passions and found his way and is doing absolutely incredible things.
Yeah, just super interesting journey he's on, and he's not done either. Now he's he dropped at the end there. Oh yeah, by the way, I wrote a couple of science fiction novels. Okay, he combines his skill set and his training, his passion for basketball and writing and reading just brilliantly.
Absolutely.
Loved it. Well, we got a lot more coming up. Now, in an interview, you talked about Black History Month, and here at First, we have a new social media activation highlighting Black voices within our community. It's very cool, so check it out if you haven't yet. All right, that's this month. But Women's History Month is right around the corner, and that's a great segue into our next panel of guests. Let's get right to it. Tell us a little bit more, Jay, about who you'll be interviewing next.
I am so excited for the next segment. I said I was excited for Andre, and he delivered, but I'm excited for what's going to happen here, because we are not speaking just to one, not two, but three incredible women that are changing the game in the sports industry, and they come from a wide variety of spaces. So I'm excited for each of you to be able to see a new path in the different directions that each of our guests have taken. So please welcome Jen Welter, the first female coach in the NFL.
The football playing doctor who can tackle anything.
I love it. We also have Yareliz Ramirez, who's the IT services manager for the Miami Heat.
Thanks, Jay. Excited to be here. Let's go Heat.
Let's go Heat. And finally, we've got Brittany Holterman, who's a former D1 basketball player, a two-time and about to be three-time American Ninja Warrior, because she just got the call again. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay. Super pumped to be here.
I love this Power Pack panel. We've got a PhD, we've got an MBA, we've got a PE, which is a professional engineer, and you've all found a way to pursue your passion within the sports that you love, and also throw in some education, some coaching, some math and science behind it. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation with each and every one of you. And I want to start from the beginning. Let's start with a little bit of your background growing up in sports, and then also how, what types of advice you would have to some of our students that you learned on your journey to being a trailblazer in the sport. Let's start with you, Jen. You were the first coach in the NFL as a female. You've also been on Madden, the first woman in Madden. You've done some pretty incredible things and are inspiring young girls all over the world. What's a little bit of that background and some of those key tips that our students can take when they're trying to blaze trails of their own?
Well, the first thing is, I want to tell y'all, I was never the person that somebody looked at and said, you'll be one of the best players in the world one day. At 5'2", 125 pounds, I heard a lot of what I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do. And thankfully, the one thing I didn't do was listen. So be so passionate and so good that you follow it, even when you're writing the history and creating the future, right? Like for me, it was love that drove me in the sport and becoming super competitive to be the best that I could. And realizing if at 5'2" I couldn't outbig anybody, could I outlittle them and outfast them? And then how could I create a unique value proposition in the sport? And that to me was putting my practical experience playing with a PhD that was a master's in sports psychology and a PhD in psychology. So I could not only know how to win the game physically, but win the game within the game, which is the mental game.
That is right on point. I love it. A lot of times we think about what are those barriers that are in our way? What are our weaknesses? If you shift that focus a little over to the strengths that you do have, we all have certain strengths, you can keep pushing forward, follow that passion, and only listen to that advice that empowers you and nothing that tries to stop you from reaching your dreams. Yeah, you've got some pretty awesome trailblazing in the world of inside, behind the team, behind the scenes. So how did that journey come about, and what are some of the things that you've learned about trying to make it as a woman within the organization itself and helping it run?
Yeah, so funny enough, I didn't have any real professional experience outside of like high school sports. So I didn't go to college and play sports. I didn't do much in the athletic space at all past high school. And so that I ended up in sports was kind of just one of the things where it came to me, and then I knew it was right when I got the opportunity. And so the mesh of sports and IT really came together beautifully for me, because I was actually getting my undergrad in business analytics actually. And when I was, going through the, undergrad and trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do, I had zero clue, no idea. So if you're out there and you have no idea what you want to do, join the club. So what had happened was that, the opportunity to work in sports had presented itself in my last semester of undergrad. I think it was probably like months in even. So I had no internships. I had I felt no real professional experience. And so when that opportunity presented itself, it's like a bulb went off, and I was like, oh, like that would be fun. That would be a fun way to still do what I'm doing in terms of business and mesh my love for sports, which is just purely because it's just fun. And so I guess my advice to those who are younger and trying to figure out how you get into the sports world is that you don't have to have any sports experience. Sometimes it's actually better to come with a fresh perspective to come into the space that you're not used to doing things, traditionally. So if you have a love for just the game and the idea of being in sports, there's definitely an opportunity out there for you, and you should definitely go for it.
I love that. I love that you tied it to fun, whether that's passion, whether that's just the excitement and the enjoyment. Students out there, the skills that you're learning in first are going to allow you to accomplish so many different types of things. The key in your success is to tie it to the things that you love the most. So find that connection to fun, find that connection to helping people, whatever it is that you're most passionate about is going to take you into some really cool places. And I'm glad you were able to find that. Yeah. Britt, How about you? You've played in a wide variety of sports. You changed your sport from basketball to American Ninja Warrior. You're an absolute beast. I've watched you compete, and it's a lot of fun. What are some of the tips that you've gained along that path and making it to the higher levels in both of these sports, and any kind of roadblocks and barriers that you were able to overcome as a trailblazer in your industry?
Thanks, Jay. So being a woman in engineering is, it's interesting. I was one of maybe 4 or 5 women at the University of Dayton in the engineering program. But my history in sports kind of set me up for that because I was constantly playing with all of the guys. So that gave me the confidence to really, raise my hand in class. And I think my biggest piece of advice to girls and young women out there is to just let your light shine. I know it's a lot easier for boys and guys to raise their hand and to be outspoken. And a lot of times the girls don't say quite as much. And I'm hoping that that's changing. But I know, when I was growing up, that's kind of how it was. So, my biggest piece of advice is just be confident, figure out who you are, and just love yourself. And I am a gay female, obviously, and for the first 5 years of working in a male-dominated industry, engineering, I kept that secret. And it was hard for me to go to work every day. And once I was able to let that out, I got immensely better at engineering just because I felt more comfortable in my skin. And I picked up Ninja about 4 years ago. So I'm this 30-year-old former Division I basketball playing engineer, 6 feet tall. I have the opposite problem as Dr. Chen. I am now the tallest ninja there is. And just trying to use engineering to figure out, okay, I kind of look like that guy over there. How is he doing a certain obstacle? Because he's 6 feet tall also. And just trying to figure out all those physics. And I mean, movement is science, and using all of that engineering, it's all connected. Like Andre said, you don't have to pick one in particular thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life. Take it from me, take it from everyone on this panel. You can start as a tall, lanky basketball player and end up being alongside 5-foot gymnasts, and somehow you can make it work.
I love that. I mean, one, thank you for sharing that story of how you were able to kind of empower yourself. And when you shared your story, take it to the next level. And so I think that's important for students to understand from both sides. If you are struggling with that, it's something that can be empowering. And then also we'll make sure that we're creating inclusive environments where people feel like they can bring their full self to work, whether that's on our teams or when we go off into industry and create environments for people that they can feel like they can show up as their full self is extremely important. And then also the balancing act. I know you're a mom, you're a gym owner, you're an athlete, you're an engineer, you do all of these absolutely incredible things. And I know you have a big passion for each one of those. So thank you each for sharing that. I think it's so important for our students to be able to hear it from you and understand that those are certain things that they're not the only ones that are facing, and that you guys were able to overcome those challenges and do absolutely incredible things. Students, keep throwing your questions into the chat. We are going to take questions from the chat for our incredible panel here again. But next, I want to go back to Yaya and ask you a little bit about the STEM and science behind the Heat or behind the basketball industry that people might not be that aware of. And you mentioned that you kind of just found it later in your college career, but what are some of those areas where we just might not really expect there to be science, and there's a lot of it?
Yeah, it's funny. I dug into my resources at the Heat to get this answer. So shout out to Andy, my colleague, who introduced me to this tool that we were using that I was actually totally unaware of until recently. In its second spectrum, which I'm sure that if you're familiar with analytics, basketball, and the game, and the NBA, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you don't, it blew my mind, and it'll blow yours as well. Basically, this tool is used to ingest video, live video, recorded video of the game, and it uses machine learning and AI to learn like anything from the player to the team to the game itself. So it's really insane. I was blown away when I heard that. I was like, what? Like we're doing that? And they're a partner of the NBA. So like, and you can see all about it online. It's really, really cool. And it's, I think, right up the alley of the audience here. Like it is a little bit of everything. And there's definitely lots of opportunity there. Andre touched on it a little bit. This is only going to get bigger and bigger. So if you're looking into the analytics, machine learning, AI space, there is huge opportunity in professional sports, and the NBA being as a forward-moving league as it is, it's going to be a really great space to be in.
I love that. They're just so powerful, and it just shows another avenue in which there's so much science and tech in the sports that a lot of our students love, but maybe don't see these connections. And not only just because it's cool, but it's giving kind of franchises an edge. And they're going to want that talent just as much as they want the talent that's on the court. So let's go to Brittany. Same question, but then also we have a question in the chat that ties along to it. And do you use any data or analysis to train for American Ninja Warrior? So if your answer was different than that, let's toss some of that in there too. But what are you thinking in terms of the audience might not be as aware of in your sport?
Yeah, so all of the obstacles involve physics. And it's just a matter of how tall or how short or how much do you weigh, how much body mass, how much muscle mass to get from one side to the other. So science is everywhere. We don't have a chance on the show to practice the obstacles. So what we're doing is a couple hours before we have to run, the producers are taking us through and just showing us the obstacles. But the people who do really well on American Ninja Warrior are the engineers, the ones who are counting steps in between monkey bars, in between obstacles. They're using their hands to figure out how tall something is, how wide something is. And so as they're talking through those rules, we get one person, one tester shows us the obstacle. So as that person's going through the obstacle, some of my favorite things that I've seen other ninjas do is like count, like almost like they don't have a timer. Well, some of them actually do have a timer. So they're figuring out how long they have until, the ring drops or something like that, so that when they go back in the warm-up area, they can walk through these obstacles without actually having to touch the obstacle, but they're visualizing every single thing that goes through there. So as a basketball player, yes, there's absolutely physics involved with the arc and the stats, and there's a lot of math. But in Ninja Warrior, there's a lot of physics. It's really cool to put those two worlds together.
I love it. So instead of going to a ninja gym, your first step should be to understand a little bit of the physics, and that's what might help you to get to stage 4 and get to the top of Mount Midoriyama. I've seen it in just how you can be more efficient on a course, or even all the design that goes into creating the course in the first place. There's a whole engineering crew that designs these obstacles, that puts them together in the stadium, does all kinds of testing and adjustments to make sure that they get the right show that we all end up seeing at the end. So that's so cool to be able to put that all together. And then let's go to Jen. Also, we've got a lot of good questions in the chat to tie to this specific question too. So same question for you, but also the people in the chat want to know, what tools and data did you use to enhance your personal performance or your team's performance in there? So if your question or if your initial answer was different, share that with us. And then can you add on any data that you used as a coach or as a player to improve your performance? I know you mentioned you were only 5'2" and you had to find every advantage you could. Was science some of that?
Okay, so first of all, if you guys didn't know this, I am the ultimate student athlete, right? A student of the game in every sense of the word. And I think data is one of the coolest things that you can be really good on. I was on the math team in high school, and I always loved to find how things put together, right? I say I'm a great dot connector. So my dissertation, and I'm going to go a little bit different. My dissertation was actually on the NFL's use of the Wonderlic in player selection. Okay. So there's data even combine, there's data in selection, there's down and distance data, like what do other teams do if we're in this situation versus this one. And so on defense, how are we going to match up against it? What do they do in these formations? And then you even look at, how can you say from a physics perspective, somebody at 5'2", how do you take down someone who's 6'10"? And that's by being really low. So there's tons of data. Numbers are everywhere in the game. But one of the coolest things I learned when I was writing my dissertation is, do you know how the Dallas Cowboys actually became known as America's team?
It's a good question. I've actually wondered that before. What is that? Why is it?
All right. So for all of you who like data, the Dallas Cowboys actually used to be known as America's computer team because they were the first ones to bring analytics to football, right? Back in the Landry era, they were the ones who first really put data to like down and distance, and they put it to, how to draft people and, do all of those things. So they were so good at it that a lot of the people just, it's a copycat league. So they started doing everything that the Cowboys were doing, and eventually they just went with America's team, but it was actually America's computer team first. And I just have a cool one. So if you are a really data person, one of my really good friends, Brittany Donaldson, who coaches for the Toronto Raptors, probably got into coaching in an even cooler way than I did. And she was a former player whose career was ended because of injury, but she was in data and analytics in the Raptors front office and was so good there that she eventually transitioned to the coaching staff because she was really good at taking the data and helping the coaches use it like real time and build it in. So just kind of a cool way on how like your data in sports knowledge can actually not only work for the coaching staff, but might be your advantage as a coach as well.
I absolutely love that as well too. Now I know the answer to the America's team thing, which is great. And I know they had some pretty good years back then, pretty incredible franchise at that time. So it's great to see that it was math and science that helped lead to that success. One thing that we keep seeing in the chat that is really important is, what advice do you have for young girls that don't see themselves represented in a field they have a passion for? And I want to start with you, Jim, because I know the story of how you got into Madden is pretty cool, and what that means for representation for young girls in the world of not just sports and STEM, but even esports, in these different areas where they are underrepresented and don't always see themselves. So can you give us some insight on that story, and then also any of those tips that you have for them so they can continue to pursue that passion?
Yeah, I sure can. And trust me, I feel it to the core of my being on how hard it is to dream if you don't see somebody who looks like you. Even though I had, 4 Super Bowls and 2 gold medals with the first and second Team USA and a PhD. And by the way, was coaching coaches. Okay. That was my business, coaching coaches on like feedback and coach athlete relationships. I never imagined that I could coach football because there were no women who I could look at who were coaching at the pro level. So I instinctively, when I was offered my first position by former Dallas Cowboy, Wendell Davis, said no. And thankfully, Wendell said, not a lot of guys are going to give you this opportunity. You're taking this job, and took the job on my behalf and said I couldn't quit. Right? So we need allies, okay, first of all. And if you are that person in that life, be the one who sees something in someone else before they even see it in myself or in yourself or in their selves, right? But then one of the really cool things is, I realized, though we may not be able to change the world as fast as we'd like, right? Like I would like a female head coach right now, but we don't have one. So if we can't change it in the real world, we can change it in the virtual world, in the esports world, in the gaming world, which actually has the same permission and socialization value as like seeing someone in the sidelines. I always say football has suffered from sins of omission. You don't have to tell a girl she doesn't belong there. It's reinforced in everywhere that she isn't. But with Madden, right, there had never been a female coach in Madden before. And yet I may not be the head coach in the NFL, but I am a head coach in Madden. And that is really neat because it has a couple of really important things. One, it normalizes seeing a female as a coach, right? It would be so shocking to show up and have a female as a coach, you know, say for your high school team or your flag team or your NFL team, if you've already played with Coach Jen in Team Shutdown and you know that we have the best defense in Madden, right? So it socializes it, makes it more normal for the guys. And then for the girls, it gives them permission to say, that's really cool and I could do that. So I think that we have to change the narratives and the storytelling around not just the world as it is, but the world that we want to see. And esports and the virtual space is a space where we can, you know, kind of instigate that change so that the real world will catch up with what we already know, which is, you know, girls can be great coaches just like boys can. Women can be great additions to an NFL staff and all of those things. So think about in your space, in your influence, where we can change the conversations so we give more people permission to see someone that looks like them.
I absolutely love your thought process behind that. I think it's so important. Even like when you think of games and choosing your character, you want to choose a character that reflects who you think you want to be. And I think that's an area where we can all start working on. And I really love what you added in there about the allies. Let's make sure that we're looking around our organizations and asking that question. Why doesn't this organization look like the community that we serve and that we inspire? And what can we do to help open some of those doors and break down some of those barriers? But yeah, you nailed it. And let's reverse engineer some of that path and get people there. Britt, I want to go to you and in your kind of respected fields. You've been in multiple fields where you may have been underrepresented and from multiple angles of who you are as a person. What are your thoughts on that in terms of how do we grow equity and representation and how do we continue to change that in the industries?
I think it comes down to us being us. Jen, I love the ally suggestion. That's so important to have people as allies. And I think for me, I was actually the only female at my engineering firm. I was also the only gay person at my engineering firm. So I hid it. And again, it wasn't until I came out that I felt more comfortable. And my hope in telling you all this and the way that I live my life now is that I can be somebody that somebody can look at and say, well, she did it. And, you know, she's a gay female. And, you know, honestly, I think that the world has made so many strides in even the last 10 years for both women and LGBTQ. It's amazing. And I think it just comes down to people being okay with who they are so that we can be represented in that field. For a woman, it's obviously like, let's talk about the vice president. How freaking cool is it that we have a female vice president? Now children across the world can look at that and be like, I could do that. And a person of color as the vice president. That's amazing. And on a super small scale for me to be a gay engineer, I hope that kids can look up to me and say, I can do that. I aspire to be that. And Jen, it is so cool that you are in the NFL. I mean, you're talking about what you said about omission. It's just, I've never seen a woman in the NFL. So obviously, like, why would I even think that I could do that? But now that is changing.
Right.
How cool watching. Well, yes, but like how cool watching the Super Bowl and seeing NFL female refs and female coaches. And it's so invigorating. I'm like getting excited about it, and just we got to keep the ball rolling and keep advancing and keep showing people that we're here.
I love it. And I love you. You're one of my favorite people. You know that, but also your wife is one of my favorite people in the world. So I'm so glad that is there, and you guys are wonderful. And it just makes the world, it makes me smile. Right. And I'm glad that we've seen tons of progress, but there's so much more that we need to do. Thank you, each one of you for representing and leading, but let's make sure that we're all doing our parts to make this world more inclusive and allowing people to be the best versions of themselves. Yareliz, anything you want to add from your perspective and your experiences as a Puerto Rican female in the industry? Let me know what your experience has been.
Yeah, I know that the question was like, what for the students in the audience, what do they do if they don't see themselves in a space that they're very passionate about? My advice to you is that the reason that you don't see anybody there is because they're waiting for you. You are going to be that person in that space. So don't be afraid to be the first, the only. You don't see that as an advantage, but it really truly is, because when you do see, like, think about kind of what Brittany was saying about seeing the first female VP, like now it opens the floodgates of like, wow, that could be me. So perhaps you are that for someone, and don't be afraid of, don't be intimidated by taking on that feat. There's going to be lots of ups and downs and tough times and great times, and all of it is definitely part of the ride, and something that it makes definitely life a little bit more fun, and it's something that you should be up to the challenge. And with that also, I always tell people when I speak to young, college students, high school students who are looking to get their foots in the door and get some experience in the field, it's important to definitely have people who are going to advocate for you. But what I like to stress that I don't feel like it's talked about enough is that you have to be your own biggest advocate. Like when you have your list of advocates, you have, your parents, your best friend, a teacher, a professor, an old boss, all these people, you have to be number one. Because if you don't feel like you can do it, there doesn't matter how many people are telling you can. You have to first look at yourself and be like, I can do this. I'm meant for this. I'm meant to be here. I worked hard. I deserve to be here. And so, yeah, that's my biggest advice. If you have to write it on a sticky note, I'm my number one advocate, and remind yourself every day. That's definitely going to get you, wherever you want to be a lot quicker.
I love that. Let's open up all the floodgates. If you want to win 7 Super Bowls, go win 7 Super Bowls. It doesn't matter if no one's done that before, right? We've just got a couple minutes left. So really quick, each one of you, I want to get our students one more awesome idea for their innovation challenges. So if there's one area, one magic wand that you could have to help innovate your sport, can you give me a quick 30 seconds on what you would want that to be? Let's go back to you, Yaya, to start.
Yeah, so I'm going to come more from the fan experience point. So something a little bit out of what we usually talk about. I actually went to my mentor, Anna Glass, shout out to her for this idea. We have our premium seats have bands, and based on the color, it shows like what sections you're supposed to be in. It's a pain to obviously distribute them, make sure that people keep them on, etc. So if there's some way to know who's supposed to be in what section without it being a physical aspect and not on the cell phone either, that would be very cool. Happy to talk more about that if you have any ideas.
I love that. If you have ideas, shoot them our way so that we can get that in front of the heat. Jen, what are you thinking? What do you want to see in changing the game in your arena?
Well, there's kind of two. I really want to see the gamification of like learning your playbook and studying opponents, right? I want us to be able to go in and like input my playbook in, like if I was going to go play Madden, so that you're actually playing games, but you're doing work too. Because there's so much you can learn from the video component, but from a processing standpoint, if we can make it fun for you to learn your playbook, I think our teams are going to be that much better. So I want to see playbook games. And then I would also really like to see a female flag video game version. I think it should be Gridiron Girls. That's the brand I've built. So
there we
if
go.
anybody's got that gaming acumen, let's go.
All right, awesome. So if you want to create a game, shoot it over to Jen. Brittany, what are you thinking?
I have two quick ones also. So American Ninja Warrior does an obstacle challenge. So a few, the Wingnuts and Deja Vu have been actually submitted from people. So first of all, create an awesome obstacle that then I get to run through and give me all the beta on it too. Second one would be some sort of virtual reality so that ninjas can warm up appropriately depending on what obstacles there are. So you can input the obstacle, you can throw on some goggles, and you can actually feel yourself going through those obstacles so you can really get ready for it.
Okay. I love both of those. And let's kick it up a notch. If there's a really good idea for an obstacle, would you be down to put that in your gym? If it fits, obviously?
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. So not only
are you
going to submit it to Ninja Warrior, we're going to submit it to Brittany to see if she'll put it in her gym. And we've had Michelle Warnke on the show before. Maybe she'll put it in her gym. A lot of great opportunities for you all to bring that together. Jen, sorry, did you have one last thought on that one?
I was going to say that would be a great thing to pair with visualization for your warm up.
Yes.
Totally.
I love it. And so that could apply not just to ninja, but any sport, and just making sure that you can visualize the right ways to get your body ready for what you're about to put it through. So thank you, all three of you, so much from the bottom of my heart. This was absolutely so much fun, so cool, such great ideas. And the things that you guys are doing are absolutely incredible. My wife and I are going to adopt, so we know for sure that I'm going to be a girl dad. And I'm just so happy that there's people like you that are doing incredible things to pave the ways. And we've come so far, but we have so much more to go. And I'm so happy that you guys are part of this journey, and now you're part of the First Family. So once we're back to in-person events, we're definitely going to have you guys back. And I'm just so grateful for everything you did. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jay.
Blair.
It's a round of applause.
Yes, thank you, each of you. Oh my goodness, Blair, what'd you think of that one?
I will lead it.
I thought Andre was amazing,
all right,
and we just took it to another level.
Yeah, usually you kind of promise low and you just exceed expectations and deliver high. So we promised high, and you still blew it out of the water. Those women, what a powerful group of game-changing women. Bravo.
And in so many different areas, from coaching, from competing, to being part of the actual organization and helping it run. And I also love the wide variety of ideas that they had for the students. I really hope all of you listening in will take some of these ideas and work on them. Even if it's not your primary project as a team, there's really good concepts that I think can help take it to the next level. And then definitely make sure that you're doing all you can to make your team an inclusive environment for anyone to be able to come to and contribute.
Yeah, just powerful role models there. Now, Jay, I know you're always looking for great stories and athletes to feature on your Changing the Game Instagram series. So what do you think about asking the First community for some suggestions?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to do that. We would love to host the people that you look up to most. Do hashtag First Game Changers on any of the platforms, and put in there who you'd love to see on the Instagram version of the show that we do. Next month is Women's History Month. So are there any other high-level, extremely awesome women that you'd love to hear from? Let us know. We'll do our best to bring them on. If you have any connections to them, send them our way. Show them the link and recording to this one, or head over to YouTube and search First Game Changers, and you'll find our previous episodes that you can share with them as well. So definitely submit the people that you'd love to see, or even just the sports that you're excited about learning a little bit more about.
Yeah, great job. Jay, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing all the heavy lifting, doing the interviewing, but always a pleasure to share the stage or the screen with you. But before you go, tell us what else are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I started my own business. I call it Invent the Change. You know, some of us have heard the phrase "be the change you want to see in the world." I'm trying to inspire young people to invent the change they want to see in the world. Right? It's great to be a great person and to influence the people around you, but if you can invent things that make the world better, not just for the people around you, but for the whole world, we can make some significant advancements as a society and as a globe. And so I'm just really excited to continue to do that. I'm doing a lot of it with my series. It's Not Magic, It's Science, inspiring young people to be able to bring science into their homes and do really cool things. Got some awesome STEM merch that is doing great things to help young people see themselves. Here on my chalkboard, I've got the hashtag #MySTEMIdentity. So doing a lot of work around helping young people from underrepresented communities view themselves as engineers, as part of their DNA, and really elevating those students and taking it to the next level. So I guess I'm kind of a free agent now myself, right? I'm open to working with all kinds of brands. First is always going to be one that I'm going to support. So if you're an organization that wants to keep doing this kind of great work and take it to the next level, I'm happy to help you inspire young minds.
Well, dude, you are always welcome at First, but there's also one other thing that you're working on. You kind of dropped a little nugget there for us. Congratulations, you're going to adopt, like you and your wife. You just sort of threw that in there at the end of the conversation, like, oh, by the way, I'm going to adopt, and it's be a girl. So congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a long process, but we're happy about it, and I'm looking forward to having the house full of Lego League things and ready to be right into the First family. First travel is probably going to be to a First event somewhere, and just excited to continue to bring and inspire now our family in the First community.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jay. Great job tonight, and look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, guys. I had a blast, and we'll see you on the Instagram version soon.
All right. Take care. All right. Now we turn to baseball, where math skills are critical both on and off the field. National Geographic has a new book out in their It's a Number Game series, and it focuses on baseball with a foreword by Major League pitcher Sean Doolittle. Tessa, one of our first Lego League alums, recently connected with Sean during a break in his spring training to talk about the book, math, and his passion for reading and social justice.
Thanks, Blair. Sean, it's great to meet you. My name is Tessa, and I'm a competitive athlete myself, and I know lots of First members are too. So I'm excited to have you here on this week's Beyond the Bots show, where we're exploring the intersection of STEM and sports. So, when did you start playing baseball?
I started playing baseball, I think I was 4 years old when I started playing t-ball. So I'm 34 years old now, so it's been quite a long journey.
That's fantastic. Now, how do you use math and numbers when it comes to baseball?
Well, in baseball, we try to quantify absolutely everything. I think baseball is notorious for having a statistic for absolutely every facet of the game. But now the game is starting to change, and we're starting to use technology in some really, really cool ways we can track the spin of the baseball, and we axis that it spins on its way to home plate after the pitcher throws it. And we can tell how much vertical break, positive or negative, the ball is getting. The way we're tracking our workloads as athletes, whether it's in the weight room or out on the practice field. We wear sensors on our arms that attach on our forearm, and that can track the way that we're throwing, and it can quantify the torque that we're putting on our elbow. And things are now able to take that data and that information and help a player maybe become more effective or help them stay healthy over the course of a long season. We also now on our staff, on our coaching staff, and our strength and conditioning staff, we have a lot of people that have a background in STEM, because they're the ones that are helping interpret this information, analyze this, and come up with the suggestions for adjustments we might need to make, or different training could try, or different biomechanic movement patterns we could try to get into to help ourselves stay healthy and be more effective. So it's really cool to see the way that baseball has embraced them, and it's definitely something that's going to make our game better and keep players healthy and prolong many players' careers. So baseball is really, the future is really bright. We're doing some really cool things when it comes to science and technology.
That's amazing. This month, National Geographic and ESPN have a new book coming out that explores how math and analytical skills are used in baseball, and it features you in the foreword of the book. What made you want to do this?
I wanted to be a part of it because I want people to fall in love with baseball the way that I have. I'm very biased, but I think it's the greatest game in the world, and I wanted to share that with people. I wanted people to be able to see the way that we're using science and technology in baseball right now to continue to push the game forward. Diving into the science and technology stuff has helped me extend my career. I'm still very much learning. I think it's something that could help extend my career by another few years. But really, at the end of the day, I just wanted to share this game. I wanted to share my love of baseball with baseball fans out there.
That is so cool. So, I know you're involved in many things off the field. We know you're passionate about social justice. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So my wife and I have tried to stay involved in the communities that we've played in over the course of my career, and I think it's really helped us form a special connection with fans and with the communities in the cities that we've played in. We are new to Cincinnati. We actually have not even been there yet because we're still in Arizona for spring training. So we're not sure yet what kinds of groups we're going to work with, or what kind of things we're going to get involved in Cincinnati. But we are very excited about learning about the city and the community. When we were in Washington, D.C., when I was playing for the Nationals, my wife was on the board of a group called SMILE, which stood for Sexual Minority Youth Assistance League. And it was a group that helped LGBTQ youth in and around the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, and Virginia. They were a great organization that did so much for kids that maybe were high school age, that were, learning about what it meant to be LGBT, and they helped them with everything from after school assistance to job programs, helping them with their resume, helping them with housing. It was really, they helped them be community leaders and advocates. They had all of these really cool programs that we were really proud to work with them. So we're hoping that we'll be able to do something along those lines in Cincinnati as well.
So, talking a little bit outside of baseball, what are your main hobbies when you're not playing baseball?
I really love to read. A few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of rediscovered books. I just found that during a season, it was my favorite way to decompress after a game. And over the course of a long season, it kind of helped me stay in a better spot mentally. And so when we travel over the course of a season, I try to find independent bookstores in cities that we play in, and I always try to keep my reading list well stocked. So I'm either probably with my dog or read a book somewhere.
First teams around the world are working on identifying challenges related to sports and fitness in their community. They're constantly coming up with creative solutions, with the first innovation challenge presented by Qualcomm. Now, my question for you is, what innovation would you like to see in baseball?
I'd like to see somehow if they could put maybe a sensor or a microchip inside of the baseballs that we use during the game, and when a pitcher throws the pitch, the fans at home can see on TV screens, maybe not just how fast it's going, because we get that on most of the broadcast already, but maybe how much the ball moved on its way to home plate, or what kind of spin did it have when it came out of the pitcher hand, and maybe that gives them a sense of maybe how much it moved, or really how hard it was for the batter to hit it. And if the batter does hit it, what was the angle off the bat at? How hard did it come off the bat? I think integrating some of these things about the way that athletes are moved during a baseball game might help fans have a better, more complete understanding of just how good some of these athletes are. I'm not one of these good athletes. I can throw hard. I can't run fast. I can't really do anything else cool. But, put on screen, how fast did that guy just run to first base? That center fielder, when the ball was hit, what was his first step reaction time? Because these guys are doing some incredible stuff that doesn't always translate when you're watching a game on TV. I think it would help fans get a better sense of really just how good the quality of play is in Major League Baseball today.
Sean, thank you so much for your time today. I know that first team members will love being able to see how math is so useful in baseball. Good luck with your new team this season.
Thanks for having me. I hope to see you at a ball game maybe this year once it's safe. I'm not sure what the protocols are going to be yet, but and I also want to say good luck to you and the rest of the athletes out there.
Thanks, Tessa and Sean. Sean is such a perfect fit in the FIRST community. And when we shared with him the amazing robots and sports for the mind that you all compete in, he was genuinely blown away. He also recognized Minute Maid Field, where he won the World Series. Now, it's been so powerful to see how each of tonight's guests think and acts beyond themselves toward equity and social justice. Really gracious professionals, one and all. And there were some terrific takeaways from today's show. The importance of transferable skills, following your passion, combining skill sets to create a role for yourself, networking, and making connections, and how diversity makes us all stronger. We hope that our guests sparked some new ideas or reaffirmed your work on your FIRST Innovation Challenge. And now listen up, FIRST Innovation Challenge teams. There is an episode of the Expert Education Series next Tuesday at 7 that is not to be missed. Experts from SeedSpot, a business incubator, will be teaching how to create impactful, concise business and elevator pitches and share examples of strong pitches. If you're wondering how to craft this 2-minute pitch that is required for judging, this is the session for you. Now, as you know, Krista McAuliffe Silver Dollar went on sale earlier this month, and FIRST teams helped make it happen through their passionate advocacy. It's a collectible featuring the FIRST logo, and it's an opportunity to honor Krista's legacy and impact in STEM. Support FIRST, as FIRST will receive a portion of the proceeds. More details can be found on the U.S. Mint's website. And now it's time to turn the page from winter to spring, and we've got just the things for you. You can spice up your desk with the ultimate assortment of FIRST accessories, including the Infinity Smart Pad, wireless headphones, pens, notebooks, wireless phone chargers, and more. Shop the FIRST store today and bring home these hot items that make your school, work, or gaming station that much cooler. And finally, as a member of the FIRST community, you make transformative experiences possible for FIRST participants and inspire the next generation of leaders and innovators. With your support, we're helping young people realize their power to find a sense of belonging, reaching new heights, and building a brighter future for all. Thank you for all that you do. And this season, if you have the capacity to give further, we hope you will consider making a donation to support the continuation of FIRST programs for future generations to come. Now, we've got more Beyond the Bots coming up this season, celebrating National Robotics Week and more. So stay tuned for more information on our upcoming shows. It's been a great night, a really awesome show. Thanks for joining us. I'm Blair from First, sending out a big thanks to all our game-changing guests for everything they do to inspire the students of First and beyond, both on the field and off, as role models and passionate advocates for social justice and equality. And big thanks to my guest hosts, Jay and Tessa, and to all you for watching. Be well, be First, and have a great season.